Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses. Our old relationship of steadily deepening integration with the United States is over. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Maple Conservative Girl podcast. Today, I am talking about how elbows up has resulted in a technical recession. For over a year now, Canadians were told to put their elbows way up high, to stand up to America, to stand up to that mean old Donald Trump, to push back against MAGA. They call conservatives and Pierre Poilievre Maple MAGA on the government-funded mainstream media like it's a fact. We were told that Canada's identity, Canada's economy, and Canada's future depended on showing strength against our largest trading partner and closest ally, that moving away from America and embracing China was the way to go. The political class loved it. The media loved it. The activists loved it. The boomers loved it. And then something really strange happened over the weekend. Mark Carney flew to New York, and standing before an audience of American investors, business leaders, and financial elites, he delivered a message that sounded very different from the one Canadians had been hearing from him for over a year now.
60% of crude oil imports. That is mutual strength. Let's be absolutely clear. Canada Strong will help make America great again, whose founding values of liberty, democracy, justice, and openness should continue to serve as guides to its future and the future of the world. That future should include a new partnership with Canada, a true partnership that reimagines cooperation in specific sectors that are deeply challenged by global competition. Above all, as you would expect, we're focused on things that are good for Canada. This is good for all Canadians, but it's also good for the United States, because a stronger Canada is a better ally. And we know that while Canada and the United States have had our differences over the centuries, we have always worked and eventually worked through them because we share values and our common interests run deep. They run through our economies. Canada is America's largest customer.
A strong Canada helps make America stronger. We conservatives already know this. Industry workers who are losing their jobs already know this. We do not dispute that fact. Closer cooperation, shared prosperity, deeper economic ties, closer connection with America, our largest trading partner by far, and our next-door neighbor, the one that we share the longest undefended border with, makes both countries stronger. Wait a second. I thought America was the problem, right? I thought Trump represented an existential threat. I thought MAGA politics was everything Canadians were supposed to reject. They literally call us Maple MAGA on the CBC as if it's some kind of slur. And they say the separatist movement in Alberta is funded by MAGA. No proof, no evidence, of course, just spewing nonsense. So what changed? Was the elbows up message genuine? Or was it simply useful politics until the moment Canadians needed American investment? The people who spent months cheering on the anti-American rhetoric suddenly found themselves in reality trying to explain why Mark Carney was doing a complete 180 flip-flop on his stance on America. And then, less than 24 hours later, a very ironic problem happened. Technical recession. Are Canadians actually experiencing the prosperity that the government keeps talking about? Is Canada as investable as the government says that we are? Or as strong as they say that we are? Do you feel like this country is prosperous? Canadians have been immersed in a political atmosphere defined by confrontation with the United States for the past year. The phrase elbows up became the rallying cry of sovereignty. Supporters presented it as standing up for Canada's sovereignty, standing up to American pressure, standing up to that mean old Donald Trump.
And we're a country that will be diplomatic when we can, but fight when we must, elbows up.
It even goes all the way back to Justin Trudeau. Like, how embarrassing. It's so embarrassing to hear that. Now, every country should defend its interests, but this is just stupid. I've been saying literally since I heard elbows up that this is stupid. Whenever I see someone wearing an elbows up shirt, I literally cringe, okay? My aunt and I, we went to like a birthday party one day, a couple months ago, and there was a man that we didn't know who had a t-shirt on that said elbows up, and we were like, ew. Canada is stronger with America. Canada should negotiate hard, protect its interests, and advance Canadian priorities. Of course, we should be building Canada strong. Actually building Canada strong? And be using our strengths and resources to negotiate and work with America? This is not happening, okay? The government is not building Canada strong. They are just using Build Canada Strong as a slogan that results in absolutely nothing. The elbows up line is nothing more than political strategy. The Liberals are amazing at politics, but they suck at policy and they suck at running the country. D-. But over time, elbows up has become something way bigger than just a negotiating posture. It became a cultural identity, a brand, a way for politicians, pundits, and activists and normal Canadians to signal what side they were on. And I mean, the people who say elbows up, they see the situation with America as black and white. Trump bad, Trump Republican, therefore Carney liberal, Carney good, and Pierre Poilievre is bad, which is so laughable. The message Canadians have been hearing is simple. America is becoming less and less reliable. Trump is a threat. Canada needs distance. Canada needs independence. Canada needs to reduce its reliance on the United States. Canadians were sold a lie. Okay, Carney trying to diversify first and pushing America away, not even trying, it seems, to get a deal with America, not using our greatest wealth as a source of leverage in negotiating with America, Carney literally mocking Trump on the world stage, bashing him. It is all a lie. And why do I say it's a lie? Because Mark Carney is 90% invested in America. If America does well economically, so does his portfolio, and therefore so does his pocket and his bank account. Elbows up is a lie. It is hypocrisy at its finest, but it was consistent. It was repeated constantly by politicians, by commentators, by activists, by much of the media, and that's why what's happening in New York is so laughable. It's so funny because when Mark Carney found himself speaking directly to American investors, the people whose money Canada actually wants and needs, the message changed, right? Suddenly the focus was not on confrontation, was not on a rupture, it wasn't on resistance or creating distance between us, it was about partnership and integration and shared economic success and shared values. And I mean, this is what conservatives have been pushing for this whole year. If this is the message the Prime Minister believes today, what exactly was all that elbows up rhetoric about? I'll tell you what it was. It was a way to distract the voters from their failure as a government. It's a way to distract people from all the domestic problems, the crisis that Canada is in, the crisis that the Liberals put us in. And Mark Carney, he's not new. He was Trudeau's economic advisor for like 4 or 5 years before he became Prime Minister. So he was a part of making this crisis here in Canada. What are we doing hiring the same people who put us in a crisis to get us out of the crisis? Obviously, they're not getting us out of the crisis. It was a political strategy, and Canadians fell for the BS, for the lie. Like, let's get real. It is nothing more than a slogan that became politically useful until reality showed up. Just listen to his language. He talks about partnership, cooperation, shared prosperity, economic integration, mutual success. The argument that he's making is straightforward and correct. Canada succeeds when America succeeds. America benefits when Canada is successful. Our economies are deeply connected. Investment flows across the border, trade flows across the border, jobs depend on that relationship, businesses depend on that relationship. Entire industries depend on this relationship. And here's the thing, everything that Mark Carney is saying is 100% true. It's not controversial. It's not even really a conservative stance. It is. I mean, we do believe this, but it's just reality. I mean, I guess the conservative stance is just common sense. The United States is Canada's largest trading partner by a massive margin. Millions of jobs on both sides of the border depend on this relationship. Canadian prosperity has always been closely tied to access to American markets, and we cannot thrive without America. Okay, we need America, especially when we don't even use our resources that would make us strong and rich and be able to stand on our own 2 feet. So hearing a Canadian Prime Minister acknowledge that really shouldn't be shocking at all. What is shocking is that it's Mark Carney who's saying it, because compare this speech to the atmosphere Canadians have been living in for a year now. For months, for a year, the message has been confrontation. Resistance. We don't need them. We don't need those MAGA people. Middle powers band together and F the Americans, F the hegemons. For months, Canadians have been encouraged to think of the relationship through a political lens dominated by Trump, MAGA, tariffs, and conflict. Everything negative, everything is Trump's fault. The liberal voters, Trump lives rent-free in these people's brains. When people hear I'm conservative, everybody always asks me what I think about Trump. And it's like, who cares about Trump? What I care about is how my prime minister is dealing with Trump. And let me tell you, he has been doing a terrible job so far. But the liberals think that he's amazing because the media shoves his fake success and so-called deals around the world down our throats and praises his nothingness. Now suddenly he's doing a 180, he's flip-flopping, and we're supposed to believe it. Now we're hearing that Canada and America rise together. We're hearing that investment depends on cooperation. We're hearing that prosperity requires partnership. I thought we didn't need them. Where was this message 6 months ago? Well, they had to win an election, so they made their campaign about fear in a dangerous and divided world. They needed Trump to be the big boogeyman, the one responsible for the collapse of Canada's economy. They needed somebody to blame, and they wanted to blame Trump instead of taking responsibility for their failures. Campaign rhetoric is emotional, okay? It creates villains and it creates conflict. It creates simple stories, and the simpletons fall for it. Governing reality is very different. Reality does not care about slogans. It does not care about hashtags. It doesn't care about political branding. Reality cares about investment. Reality cares about jobs. Reality cares about economic growth. And when Mark Carney walked into a room full of investors in New York, he wasn't talking to the activists or the people looking for social media content. He was talking to people deciding where to put billions upon billions of dollars. And those people are not interested in his loser slogans. They're interested in stability, predictability, growth, and profitability. They want to know that they can succeed in Canada. Why would they put their money here if they wouldn't be able to succeed? Carney is not an idiot. He understands that Canada cannot afford a prolonged political or economic rupture with the United States. He understands that attracting investment requires reassuring American business leaders, not antagonizing them. And circling back to the Sovereign Wealth Fund, the government plans to put $25 billion into the fund, money that would be borrowed, that we would have to pay interest on, not drawn from a surplus the way every other country does it, which is so idiotic. If that government money is used to protect private investors from losses, then taxpayers could end up carrying risks that investors would normally bear themselves. Will Mark Carney tell investors, oh, you're covered with the Sovereign Wealth Fund to entice the investors to come invest in Canada? And then if these investors fail, then they'll be covered by taxpayer money? You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if the Sovereign Wealth Fund was used to cover investors' losses. I mean, he says it's to help build national projects, but he won't remove the bad laws that make it so icky for investors to invest, you know? Like, how are people supposed to build anything in Canada and thrive without government subsidy? Hence, the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, I'm not saying he has not said that he would do this, but why else would we have a Sovereign Wealth Fund? You gotta think, like, where is he going to put this money? The speech we're hearing now sounds very similar to what many conservatives have been saying for years. Not that Canada should surrender its interests or surrender to Donald Trump. We should be doing, like, when Donald Trump told us to secure our borders, we said, elbows up, we're not going to secure our borders. It's like we should have secured our borders not for Trump, but for us. We shouldn't just agree with every American administration, but Canada's prosperity is inseparable from a healthy relationship with the United States. That's not ideological, that's geographic. It's reality. It's common sense. We need to work with America. And Carney, if he really wanted to, he could work with them. He could have gotten a deal by now. We have leverage. We have the fourth biggest oil supply on the planet? What is he doing? But instead, he's too busy insulting Trump everywhere he goes. Every single country in the whole world would love to be in our position right now. Like, we have everything that we need to be strong and self-sustainable. We could be, but we rely on America because we're not making Canada strong. And he's saying, well, we have to diversify. No. We don't have to diversify first. We have to deal with America first. And then we also, at the same time, have to build our own economy strong. Like, what are we diversifying? What are we selling abroad? A huge portion of Canada's political and media establishment spent months encouraging a narrative that implied greater distance from America, and that was somehow the path to prosperity, but that is a lie. Then the Prime Minister arrives in New York and effectively tells investors the exact opposite, the truth, that Canada's success depends on cooperation with America. That Canada's success depends on integration with America, that Canada's success depends on strong economic ties with America. Those two messages are very difficult to reconcile. And judging by some of the reactions we're about to look at, a lot of people are struggling to do exactly that. Because once the speech was over, it wasn't conservatives who were confused. I mean, of course, we're confused that, why is he saying this? Well, we know why he's saying this. It's all a lie. It was just to win. But it was the people who had spent months defending the rhetoric, the elbows up, the anti-America, the, hey, let's not put booze on our, we can't buy American booze. Like what? So let's look at the reaction.
A lot of what the Prime Minister said today sounded familiar. Some of it sort of made me raise an eyebrow, particularly that last line there about a strong Canada making America great again. And I wondered what you made of that and who you think he was actually talking to there.
I think he was talking to Americans. I think the Prime Minister has developed a tendency to adjust his message, sometimes in conflicting ways, depending on the audience that he is speaking to. And it is increasingly, I think, becoming obvious to Canadians that there's some elasticity in his message, shall we say, in terms of, on the one hand, you have the elbows up message. You have the framing of the Davos speech where the rupture is a relationship between Canada's relationship vis-a-vis the United States. You have a very important narrative that is set out there that has brought public support for things that previously were more controversial, like pipeline approval and speeding up assessments for other natural resource projects. And on the other hand, you have the message he delivered today, which in the case, the word rupture here was about the global order and the world, not about the relationship of Canada vis-a-vis the United States. We had a little bit of this floating in the fall. Remember when they were talking about sectoral tariff relief on the 232 tariffs, where we have a deeper integration with the United States on energy, potentially on critical minerals. And I think that is what the Prime Minister was hinting at. Yeah. But building Fortress North America is in conflict with the idea that our relationship is forever changed and we have to completely diversify. So it's interesting to see the Prime Minister trying to square that circle.
Mark Carney is like an elastic. He will say one thing in BC, another in Quebec. He says he's for green energy, but then pretends to want a pipeline. He looks like a chronic liar who will say anything to get what he wants. He's not authentic. And now he's saying, make America great again, or Canada Strong helps make America great again.
There doesn't seem to be any sort of concrete progress or a move towards an official negotiating table. And I wondered about that and then what the PM said and how those two things maybe fit together or don't.
Well, I think in the real world, there is no option but to try for Mark Carney to try to walk and chew gum at the same time, because you are not about to replace the United States as a trading partner by making deals all over the planet. You can diversify.
We know that. We actually need America. And it's fine to diversify. We have no problem with the diversification. But they're deliberately not trying to get a deal with America, so it seems, and the CBC is finally calling it out. It's funny how as soon as Mark Carney got his majority government through dirty backroom deals, now they're calling it out. They're saying that he has an authoritarian streak, that, we can't really just diversify. We have to have a deal with America. But they've been praising him for the last year. The reality and the truth is that diversifying and pushing America away for an economic partnership with China is hurting our country. Who cares about his deals in Indonesia, it doesn't even come close to America. Nothing will ever replace America.
New York City to, a huge banker investment business crowd, right? And it was the concluding line that drew the most headlines, this notion that a strong Canada can help make America great again. If the sentence sounds familiar, it's because it is. It's MAGA. What was your reaction?
Negative. And I think it was a mistake, to be really direct. And, I think that because the Prime Minister has such a delicate balance to strike constantly when it comes to the Canada-US file. He's constantly having to balance the desire to secure some positive progress, some kind of trade guarantees going forward around CUSMA and others that serve the Canadian interest. But at the same token, he got elected on elbows up. And so that balance is on display always. This speech, in my view, at least that one specific line, tipped the balance, I think, in an unhelpful direction. His speech, I thought, was very potent. It was an iteration of his Davos speech given to a U.S. audience, and I thought that it was quite powerful until that last line. Strategically, that line is not going to persuade the White House that suddenly Canada's in their corner. It's not.
These people were probably in the fetal position, sucking their thumbs all weekend, wondering what the hell is going on here. How do these liberals support this speech without basically admitting that conservatives were right all along when it comes to Canada-US trade? Pierre Poilievre has been very direct and very grounded in what he wants. He has been advocating for Carney to get a deal. We know there ain't no deal happening. He never wanted a deal. He pushed his fear campaign onto the clueless liberal voters and the business liberals thinking, I'll give him a chance, He was an economic genius. How is that playing out for them now? The great economic genius who proclaimed that he was great in a crisis, that we wouldn't see him unless there was a crisis. The Liberals continuously gaslight Canadians, saying that we've never had it better. Remember this?
Why the deficit is set to be less than was projected.
Because we're good fiscal managers.
Affordability is the best it's been in over a decade.
After 1 year of the Liberal government gaslighting the public, telling us they're great, the economy is great, everybody wants to invest in Canada because we're so reliable, blah, 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 blah. Less than 24 hours after Mark Carney stood in New York telling investors about opportunity and growth and partnership with confidence, this happens.
The Canadian economy has slipped into a technical recession, according to new data from Statistics Canada. Economic growth stalled in the first quarter of this year, and real gross domestic product was slightly negative on an annualized basis. The agency mainly blames higher imports of gold and a weak month of March for Canada's resource extraction industries like mining, oil, gas, and forestry, dragging down economic activity. Real GDP has now declined for 2 consecutive quarters, which means the definition of a technical recession, a term the opposition leader disagrees with.
That is not technical, it is real. This is a full-blown liberal recession.
Canada has now posted negative real GDP growth in 3 of the last 4 quarters. The finance minister told the House of Commons he remains confident about the Canadian economy.
Technical recession, everybody. What the F is a technical recession? Just trying to make it sound like, guys, it's not a real recession. It's a technical recession. Don't worry. Mark Carney isn't a complete loser. He's an economic genius. Just you wait. Just you wait. It's coming. We're confident about the economy that we're building. Why would we even listen to François-Philippe Champagne? What an embarrassment. A recession is a recession is a recession, okay? And 3 of the last 4 quarters, there have been negative GDP growth. Carney has been in office for 4 quarters. 75% of his time in office has been a failure when it comes to the economy. The political spin machine has kicked into full gear. Some economists have said that Canadians shouldn't put too much weight on the recession label. No big deal, everybody. It's just a recession. Just people losing their jobs. Just high inflation. Carney's an economic genius. He's super well educated, everybody. Insane.
Yeah, I'm not sure at this juncture, Tom, it's the R word that is the main inflection point politically. But if you have 0.1% growth or 0.1% contraction, either way, your economy has flatlined, which I do feel like becomes a political issue.
It's a huge political issue, and I love the way the word technical crab walked its way sideways and attached itself to the word recession. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm trying to find any textbook that gives a definition of a technical recession. Yes, officer, technically I was speeding, but it was only a few miles an hour above the speed limit. A recession is a recession is a recession. 2 consecutive quarters, negative growth. Recession, not a technical recession. So
exactly. The economy shrank. That's it. That's all we need to know. And it happened after years of affordability concerns, housing pressures, rising household debt, and weak business investment in Canada. It happened years after Conservatives have been warning that this would happen. While the government boasts about non-existent prosperity, the data tells a different story. The people losing their jobs, homes, lined up at the food banks, business investment fleeing to America, elbows up, the subsidies, all tell a different story. That's a problem. Let's start with the facts, okay? Statistics Canada reported that the economy contracted for a 2nd consecutive quarter. The first quarter of 2026 posted negative growth after a decline in the final quarter of 2025. That meets the commonly used definition of a recession. But they gotta downplay the recession part to make Carney look a wee bit better, right? By adding on that technical, which doesn't even make any sense. Even more surprising, many economists had expected growth. Instead, they got contraction because investment continued to weaken. Investment has now been soft for multiple quarters now. The exact thing politicians say they want, new private sector investment, has been moving in the wrong direction. There's been a brain drain down to America, an investment drain down to America, which is exactly what Trump wants. Elbows up. And this whole thing makes Carney's New York speech even more revealing because suddenly attracting investment has apparently become the priority. Please, I truly, truly believe that these people running our country are one of 2 things. Either really incompetent at running a country or in a very sinister way, intentionally tanking this country for their own benefit.
The only way out of this liberal recession is to reverse the policies that caused it in the first place. And that is why we are calling for the Prime Minister to get back in the House of Commons and introduce a bill to reverse all of the economic policies his party has introduced over the last decade. We don't need more photo ops, more signing ceremonies, more discussion papers. We need to reverse the Liberal policies that have given Canada the only recession anywhere in the G7.
Yeah, they've literally done nothing. There is nothing technical about Canadians struggling with affordability, rising mortgage stress, food bank usage, and weak economic growth. Poilievre is directly blaming the Liberal economic policies, as he should, and he argues that Canadians need answers about why the economy has been underperforming. We all know why the economy is underperforming. We have a Liberal government whose only concern seems to be how much power they can have and how much power that they can gain.
The member should do his economic homework. He should understand that Canada is the most integrated country in the world with the United States. They have declared a trade war on us. This side of the House understands that. We will control what we can control. That's why we're building new mines at Red Chris. That's why we're building new pipelines on Sunrise. That's why we're building 4 new mines in Saskatchewan, a uranium mine, a potash mine, and a copper mine. They should start to understand economics and try to help build this country instead of tear it down.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mexico shares a border with the United States and is as integrated with the U.S. as we are. And Mexico is not in a recession. Only Canada, in all of North America, only Canada is in recession. Not only that, since this Liberal Prime Minister took office, he's lost 46,000 jobs, 112,000 in the last 3 months alone. We have the second highest unemployment in the G7, a third higher than the U.S. The economy has contracted 3 of the last 4 quarters. Over $20 billion of net investment has fled the country. 5 consecutive quarters of investment dropping. Mortgage delinquencies up a third, a 17-year high. Why are we the only country in a recession?
Just blaming everything on Trump, right? We're doing this, we're doing that. But Trump, that meanie, put tariffs on us and there's nothing that we can do. We're helpless, we're victims. These people are narcissists. They cannot take responsibility for anything, and Pierre Poilievre, he should be helping us build Canada strong, not tear us down, right? According to them. It's you guys who have torn this country to shreds, and Pierre Poilievre is calling out your failure as a government. You guys are not building anything. It's all an illusion. But he's bad for calling you guys out on your BS. What has gotten better in Canada in the last year? Seriously, what has gotten better that we can measure with stats and data? The government says things are going great, yet the economy contracts. The opposition demands answers. That's how parliamentary democracy is supposed to work. Canadians wanted the biggest opposition to hold this government to account. But he's tearing this country down for calling out your failures?
That just because Conservatives say things over and over again with righteous indignation does not make it any more true. Canada's economy is facing the headwinds that every other economy around the world is facing. The Bank of Canada governor came to Public Accounts Committee today and cautioned the Conservatives at taking one indicator over another and prioritizing it too much. In reality, our economy is strong, which is projected to have the second fastest growth. Our non-U.S. exports are up. Foreign direct investment is at its highest point in almost 20 years, and wages have...
I can tell you this, Mr. Speaker, no Conservative will ever apologize for getting up and fighting against this bad Liberal government.
This Liberal MP is Delulu. Straight up gaslighting everybody, saying that we're building this, we're building that, the economy is great, we're on the right track, everybody. Then why the hell are we in a recession if things are so great? If you're building Canada strong, but we're in a recession. And they want Conservatives to apologize for opposing their terrible leadership. They are shameless. I would be embarrassed to be a minister in the Liberal government, defending these people. How do these people take themselves seriously? I think that they are straight up laughing at us.
Well, Canadians have had it with this Prime Minister's costly credit card budget. The deficit is $65.3 billion, and this year Canadians will pay $58.7 billion on debt interest. Food inflation rose 3.8% in April, with gas prices surging 28.6% last month alone. Canada is the only G7 nation in a recession. The Prime Minister is more focused on his American stock portfolio and his friends at Brookfield than Canadians. How many more negative quarters of growth will it take for him to change course?
Conservatives are done with the Liberals. They care more about their investments than they do about the people who elected them into office, the people that they represent. Mark Carney jet-setting around the world, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on food, burning hundreds of tons of carbon while lecturing us about being climate-friendly and giving us tax-funded EV rebates and grocery rebates. If Canada was doing so well, we wouldn't need the government to hand out a measly little rebate that we pay through taxes. And Carney hasn't answered questions. Any questions about this recession in like the last 4 days since it was declared? What kind of leader acts like that? We want the Prime Minister to explain why Canada has become the only G7 country posting negative growth 75% of his first year in office. Instead, Carney has avoided direct accountability by not being present for question period as the recession debate has exploded. Now Liberals will say that that's political theater, that Pierre Poilievre is just obstructing, that he's trying to get clips for social media, that he's just complaining. God, he's so annoying. No, they are avoiding accountability. Politically, it looks so bad on them. The biggest economic story in the country breaks, the opposition is demanding answers, and the Prime Minister isn't in the House, hasn't done a press conference. That is not good optics. Then came the media response. A lot of coverage focused on whether Canada was really in a recession, debating the definition of what is a recession. A lot of coverage focused on why the downturn might not be as severe as the headline suggests. It's just a technical recession, not a full-blown recession, right? Instead of asking, why is the economy shrinking? They're asking, well, should we really call it a recession? Ordinary Canadians don't live inside economic definitions. Who cares what it is called? They live inside grocery bills, mortgage payments, rent payments, energy bills. They're so out of touch with the reality of actual Canadians, whether you call it a technical recession, an economic slowdown, or a contraction. Are they better than they were a few years ago? And that's what makes the timing of Carney's New York speech so remarkable. One day the Prime Minister is telling investors that Canada is a place of opportunity, of growth, of investment. Everybody, Canada is open for business. Make America great again. The next day, the country is debating whether it just entered a recession or not. One day we're told everything is moving in the right direction, great for investment. The next day, recession. Technical recession. Political messaging runs into economic reality, and economic reality always gets the final word. Conservatives, we will have our moment, okay? We need it, because these Liberals are just I literally have nothing good to say about them. I'm biased. Obviously, I'm a conservative. I do not like this Liberal government, but what the hell have they done? They've done nothing to make Canada strong. They've done nothing to help with the domestic problems. They haven't even, after all this time and all these trips going abroad and trying to diversify, what has that changed with regard to our relationship with America, If any, it would be different if, we went from 85% or 75% trade with America down to 50% and diversifying and opening up our oil industry, and that's what would make us stronger, that's how diversification would actually help us, But that's not what's happening. So what have they done that's good? Anyways, that should be all for today, everybody. I hope that you have a wonderful day. I usually, when I first started this podcast, I was doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but now it just seems impossible to do because I'm so busy in the spring and the summer. So my goal is to do 2 episodes a week. I'm thinking Tuesday and Saturday. So I will try for 2 episodes a week. That is my goal. I just don't know what days they will be on because I have children, I have a farm, I have a lot of stuff going on. I work. So I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.